Two men decide to add 20 pounds of body weight. They give themselves the same 12 weeks to do it. They run the same training program. They sleep about the same. And when you add up their food across a week, they have eaten almost exactly the same number of calories. Both of them are, by any honest definition, bulking. Both are running what people call a caloric surplus, which explained simply is just taking in more energy than the body burns. On a spreadsheet, these two men are running the identical experiment. They do not end up in the same body. The thing that separates them is not the size of the surplus, it's what the surplus is made of. One man fills his extra calories mostly with whole food, the boring stuff, meat and rice and fruit and milk. The other fills them with whatever happens to be nearby, which in practice means the surplus arrives as donuts more often than chicken. That one variable, the composition of the extra food, is the entire difference between a dirty bulk and a lean bulk. Everything else about the two of them is held constant. For a long time, the argument over dirty bulk versus lean bulk got fought on the surface in terms of how each man would look in the mirror at the end. The lean bulk man would be leaner. That part was never really in question. What took longer to understand is that the two men are not simply carrying different amounts of fat by week 12. They are running different hormonal machinery, and the machinery turns out to be the part that decides how much of that 20 pounds was ever muscle at all. Begin with the ratio, because it's the least surprising piece, and it sets up everything after it. When a person gains weight slowly and deliberately, the body sends most of that gain toward lean tissue. In the controlled research, gaining at a rate near 0.16% of body weight per week put roughly 85% of the gain into lean mass and only about 15% into fat. Take the same person and push the pace closer to 0.38% per week, and the split slides to something like 65% lean and 35% fat. The faster, dirtier approach did not build much more muscle. It built slightly more muscle and a great deal more fat. The ceiling on muscle barely moved. There's a reason that ceiling holds. Muscle can only be assembled so quickly. Past a fairly modest surplus, the extra calories are no longer accelerating anything because the rate at which the body can lay down new muscle protein is already close to maxed out. So the additional food doesn't go where the dirty bulker imagines it goes. It goes to fat. He is eating far beyond the point of any return, and the return stopped compounding a long way back. If you've been eating big and wondering why you're just getting soft, that's the reason, and my lean bulk program is built to fix exactly this. Links in the description. This is why the numbers behind a proper lean bulk look almost disappointing at first. For most men, staying in that high quality zone means gaining somewhere around 1/4 to 1/2 pound a week and not a pound more. That's the whole discipline. It feels too slow. It feels like nothing is happening. And that feeling is precisely what the dirty bulker is running away from when he decides to just eat. He trades a slow gain he can keep for a fast gain that's mostly fat, and he tells himself he'll sort it out later. That extra fat is where the story stops being about appearance. Fat tissue is not inert storage sitting quietly on the frame. It is active, and in men one of the things it does is run an enzyme called aromatase, which converts testosterone into estradiol, a form of estrogen. The more fat a man carries, especially around the midsection, the more aromatase he's running, and the more of his own testosterone gets quietly turned into estrogen. This effect is measurable, and it is not small. Obese men carry testosterone levels that average 30 to 40% below their lean, same-age peers. When those men shed 10 to 15% of their body weight, testosterone tends to climb back by something on the order of 100 to 200 nanograms per deciliter, with no drug involved, nothing but the fat coming off. Sit with what that means happening inside a bulk. Testosterone is one of the main signals instructing the body to build muscle and hold on to it. The dirty bulk man, by carrying his surplus as fat, is slowly turning down the exact hormone the whole project depends on. He's eating more in order to build more, and the manner in which he's eating is suppressing the system that does the building. The lean bulk man, carrying far less fat for the same weight on the scale, leaves that system closer to untouched. There also seems to be a threshold to it, a point where the cost stops being gentle and starts to climb. For a lot of men, Once body fat pushes past the mid-teens as a percentage, aromatase activity and insulin resistance don't rise politely in a straight line. They accelerate. So a dirty bulk that starts a man at 15% body fat and ends him at 25 spends its entire back half in the exact zone where the hormonal cost is steepest. The first few weeks feel free. The last few are quietly charging interest. Insulin is the other piece, and it moves faster than most people expect. You don't have to become visibly fat for the metabolic picture to shift. In one study, non-obese men and women were overfed by a little over 1,000 calories a day for 28 days. By the end, they'd gained under 3 kilograms, hardly a dramatic amount, and their insulin sensitivity had already measurably declined. 4 weeks of a genuine surplus, and the body was handling nutrients worse than when it started. That matters because insulin sensitivity governs how cleanly the body routes each meal into muscle rather than into fat. As it falls, more of what you eat gets stored, which feeds the fat gain that drove the testosterone problem in the first place, which pulls insulin sensitivity down again. And insulin resistance does its own quiet damage on the hormonal side, suppressing the binding proteins that carry testosterone and blunting the testes' own production. The dirty bulk is not one bad decision, it's a loop that tightens on itself. It's worth being honest about a wrinkle here, because the internet version of this usually flattens into estrogen bad, testosterone good, keep the fat off and you win. The biology is less tidy than that. Estrogen in a man, in the right amount and acting in the right tissue, is not the enemy. It's actually part of what keeps muscle itself insulin sensitive, and men whose estrogen gets driven too low run into their own metabolic trouble. The problem with a dirty bulk was never that estrogen exists. It's that dragging body fat high enough forces the whole system into a shifted state where more testosterone gets converted than should be, and the metabolic handling that's left runs worse than it did. Dose and context are the entire thing, and the dirty bulk gets both of them wrong. Which is really the answer to how to lean bulk once you clear away the meal plan screenshots and the supplement lists. A lean bulk is not a tidier looking version of the same activity. It's the version that keeps the hormonal environment on your side while you gain. The surplus stays small enough that the gain skews toward muscle. That keeps body fat low, so aromatase stays quiet and testosterone holds near where you found it. Insulin sensitivity stays intact, and for the same set of reasons, the following month's gains skew toward muscle again. The lean bulk man isn't ahead because his plate photograph's better. He's ahead because every part of the system is still pointing the same direction. Stop guessing at your surplus. My lean bulk program hands you the exact calories, the exact food, and the exact pace that keep your testosterone high while you grow. Grab it in the description right now. And the gap between the two men doesn't close at week 12. It widens because a bulk is only half of the cycle. Eventually both men have to diet the fat back off. The lean bulk man has very little to lose, so his cut is short and he holds nearly all the muscle he built. The dirty bulk man is staring down months of dieting, and here's the part that stings. Cutting off a large amount of fat, especially in a hormonal state that's already suppressed, puts the muscle he paid for at risk too. He spends the back half of the year losing weight, and some of what he loses is the very tissue the whole bulk was supposed to build. So the two men, who started with the same number of calories and finished the bulk within a pound of each other on the scale, are not close at all once the full cycle plays out. One kept his hormones intact, gained mostly muscle, and needed almost no cut. The other lowered his own testosterone, gained mostly fat, and then spent months clawing back to where a slower approach would have quietly left him all along. Don't start another bulk blind. Click the link, start my lean bulk program today, and build the kind of muscle you actually keep.